I bet you wouldn't be surprised to find out that a company as late as the year 1978 still had people using separate bathrooms based on their skin color. I bet you wouldn't be surprised that that was happening in the Jim Crow South right here in Mississippi over 10 years after the Civil Rights Act was passed by Lyndon B. Johnson in 1964. I bet that none of this surprises you, probably because you're from Mississippi or you're from the South or you've read a book or seen a movie, and I'm here to tell you that this case is exactly that. What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning into this video. Thank you for supporting this growing channel. I decided, like I said in my other video, that I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring with a couple of these political topics, a couple of the current events that are going on, just because there's a lot going on here in the state of Mississippi. Whether you're following the 1-year-old that was shot and killed up in Senatobia at the Walmart, or the young man that lost his life down on the coast this past weekend, there's been a lot going on. A lot of attention has come to the state because as civil rights activist Ben Crump, who's also an attorney, has come down to the state, not necessarily to represent the family because there is no suit presented thus far. There's a lot that's going to be coming in the next couple weeks. I'm really interested to see what happens in that case, and hopefully in another video, whenever I have more information, I'll be able to do a little bit more with that case, do a breakdown of it. For tonight, I want to keep it brief, and I could go into this, we could talk about this case for hours, but you've heard of the Chicago 7, you've heard of the Central Park 5, but have you heard of the Mississippi 9? And the chances are probably not, because this was just filed. This was just filed in federal court. You can see in the United States District Court, the Northern District of Mississippi, up in the Aberdeen Division. So
this is a huge case for a lot of reasons. It's really important for all the people in Mississippi. It really is important for all people across the United States of America because this has to do with something very serious. Title VII and also 1981. We're talking about civil rights and civil liberties here. So this is a serious discrimination suit that is coming against Taylor Machine Works, Taylor Defense Products, and then John and Jane Doe's 1 through 10 and John Doe Entities 1 through 10. So,
like I said, I want to keep this brief. I want to inform you. I want to talk about this case. But at the same time, I'm going to try not to leave too much out. It is late tonight, so I'm going to try to get this video out as quick as possible, and then hopefully within the next week I can publish another video going more in depth of this complaint, and hopefully we can read it line by line. But tonight we're just going to be going over the facts of the case. So we're going to skip the parties here. I'd like to mention that a jury trial is going to be demanded. So you can see here, jury trial is going to be demanded. What does this mean? So you essentially have the option to either skip the jury trial altogether and have a bench trial with just a judge, but that is not the case. Here in the complaint, we can see that our parties, our plaintiffs, who are Robert Doss, Willie Miller, Anthony Hickman, Rufus Dodson, Tyrone Hickman, Devell Thompson, Henry Sistrunk, Darius Ivey, and Darius Miller, all of our plaintiffs here, these 9, the Mississippi 9, have come together and they've presented this complaint and they demand a jury trial. What does that mean? So whenever you go to a jury trial, you're not going to have just a judge hearing the case. This is going to go in front of 12 people up in that district, in the Aberdeen Division, and they are going to hear the facts of the case and they're going to weigh in. One thing that is very important for this case is that this is allowing punitive damages. So the judge is going to allow for the jury, if they find the defendants here, Taylor Machine Works, to be liable. What does that mean? That means penalties, serious penalties. Whenever you receive punitive damages, it's more than just compensation for what happened or for any type of pain and suffering or loss of enjoyment of life. It's more than just that. It's literally a punishment that will be inflicted upon this company. So Taylor Machine Works, Taylor Defense Products, if they get hit with this suit and it does turn out that the jury finds them liable, then at the end of the day, it's up to the jury to decide just how much they're gonna have to pay the Mississippi 9. So keep that in mind as we go throughout this entire video, that the jury is going to have these facts before them as well. And what do they do with the facts? Well, they're going to come up with punitive damages. They're going to come up with all types of compensatory damages. But the punitive damages are what should really scare Taylor Machine Works and Taylor Defense Products. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. But let's jump into the complaint. So we're going to omit the parties here. We understand that we have the Mississippi 9 suing Taylor Machine Works and also that other company which is under the same umbrella. So let's get into the factual background. So right off the jump, I mean, whoever wrote this petition knew what they were doing because they set the stage. African American citizens of the United States of America have a constitutional right to be free from the discriminatory employment practices of private corporations. So right off the jump, we're saying, hey, look, African American citizens have a constitutional right against this type of stuff, which they are about to outline here. What is this type of stuff? What actually is the line of facts? That's what we're about to find out. So let's go down a little bit here. We see, yes, we have the law that prohibits race-based discriminatory employment practices, et cetera, et cetera. But here, this is what really gets it started. What was once necessary for freed slaves remains necessary today. I just want to highlight that. So I just want to highlight that, and let me just reiterate this. I mean, what? What was once necessary for freed slaves remains necessary today, as is evinced by the treatment of the plaintiffs in this action. So, I mean, that's such a strong way to start it. Whoever wrote this, the nine are saying, look, what was once necessary, these protections that were necessary for freed slaves to get equal treatment, they're necessary today specifically because, not exclusively, but in this instance specifically because of the type of behavior that they allege the defendants committed against the Mississippi Nine. So we don't know how much money this company is making. But I assume, it is my opinion, is my judgment, that it's a lot of money. I mean, they have defense contracts with the government, which I'm sure are no joke. And we're going to get into that in a later video, some exact numbers. But what I will say is, when you have these facts that I'm about to present to you and you throw them in front of a jury and you say, hey, look, this company, which I'm not saying that they do make this much money. This is just a hypothetical situation. If you have a jury in front of you, let's say you're sitting in the jury and I come up to you and I say, look, what this company did was wrong, and I'm about to show you the facts as to why. But keep in mind, this company makes $50 million a day. So if you're gonna punish them, if you're gonna impose punitive damages on them, at least make it a week's worth of their time, you know? And then all of a sudden, you're up seven times 50, you're looking at $350 million in punitive damages in a situation like that. So they have to be really careful about how they play this. And this is a serious suit. I mean, this could be game changing. I mean, the Mississippi Nine, they could really bring some attention to the state and some attention to these types of practices. So let's go down a little bit further. Defendants have a long history of perpetrating discriminatory harm against their workers in Louisville, Mississippi. As recent as 1978, African American employees were required to use separate facilities, like outhouses, while their Irish American, Italian American, and so forth fellow workmen were allowed to use the facilities indoors. Let's keep in mind that the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964, by the way. So by as late as 1978, we're talking about 10 plus years after the passing of the Civil Rights Act, you still have Jim Crow in the South. You still have Jim Crow in this company. In this company, you still have Jim Crow. So setting the stage, let's just keep going down. Let's keep going down a little bit. So on or about September 4th, 2025, plaintiffs arrived to work at 6 a.m. So you're getting to work at 6 a.m. You're going about your day. All good. Each of the plaintiffs reported to their workstation and prepared to begin their work for the day. So everything's normal. When all of a sudden, Matthew Casanis, I don't even know how to say that last name, and Todd Hall, they reported that they allegedly smelled an odor of marijuana inside the warehouse. Keep in mind, this is probably a large warehouse. I mean, you're looking at probably a big space. And so they come in and they say, hey, it smells like marijuana in here. You can see where I'm going with this. You don't even need all of the facts. You know where this is going. So they come in, they say, oh, it smells like marijuana in here. What should we do? Any reasonable person would have said, okay, let's drug test everybody. So either way, you would hope that this doesn't go where you think it's going. But it does. It goes exactly where you think it's going. So let's see what they do. They say, oh, it smells like marijuana in the warehouse. So what do? They're talking about it. They're discussing. This plan was profusely objected to by the stewardess and union representative. Where is this going? Obviously, they say, you know what? Let's round up the African American men and drug test them. So you walk into a warehouse, a large warehouse, and you say, let's go round up the black guys. Oh, okay. Let's go round them up. Let's put them in a van, take them off-site and drug test them, only them. Do they not see an issue here? So of course, the stewardess and the union representatives say, whoa, this wouldn't be fair, right? This wouldn't be fair because it's contrary to the drug testing policy, as pointed out here in the petition, in the complaint. It's contrary to the drug testing policy. It's supposed to be if you either, it may be random, or if you smell it on somebody, sure. But to smell it in the warehouse, wherein white and black workers alike are working, and you say, let's go round up the black guys? Yeah, I mean, come on, this is common sense stuff. But in Mississippi, it's still so real. So here we see in 16, defendant's reasonable suspicion drug testing policy states that any testing must be based on the belief that an employee is using or has used drugs in violation of the employer's policy and must be drawn from specific, objective, and articulable facts and reasonable inferences drawn from those facts in light of experience and may be based upon, among other things, observational phenomena, abnormal conduct, erratic behavior. You see, this is a normal drug testing policy, right? You smell it on somebody, you see them acting strange, and you go test them. What you don't do is you don't say, hey, it smells like marijuana in this warehouse. Where are the black guys, right? You don't do that. But they did. Allegedly, of course. But according to this complaint, they did. This is the type of stuff that we're talking about. It just can't be happening. It shouldn't happen. I don't care what side of the fence you're on politically, what side of the fence you're on when it comes to religion. I really don't care. I don't care if you're super far right, super far left, right smack in the middle, moderate. I don't care. This is the type of stuff that the law clearly prohibits, and here we are. Here we are in Aberdeen, Mississippi, in the Aberdeen division of Mississippi. It's still happening. The Mississippi 9 are an example of that. Can you imagine? Anyway, I don't want to harp on this too much. I know I could go into it further and further, and I will in another video, but I'm trying to keep it short here. Even though there's so much. We're only on page 5 out of 12, and you already know where this is going. So here we go. In 18, there were no reports that anyone saw any plaintiff smoking marijuana. So nobody sees anybody smoking marijuana, especially not the Mississippi 9. But no, you've got to round them up, take them off-site, and you've got to drug test them. Oh my gosh, I mean, are you serious? So here we go, 20. In front of their coworkers, each plaintiff was led to a company-owned black passenger van and transported to a company-sponsored medical facility for drug testing. So they were marched in front of all of their colleagues, all of their coworkers. You say, it smells like marijuana in here. Where are the black guys? You grab them, you walk them in front of everybody that works at the facility, you throw them in a van and you take them off-site. What is this? What is going on? They were told that if they refused to take the drug test, they would be terminated, having families to provide for. The plaintiffs submitted to the unlawful drug test. I can't imagine how many times people have conformed, especially here in the South, specifically in this area with the history that's alleged here in the complaint. How many times people have said, fine, I have a family to provide for, there's no other options, this is my only spot that I can work, you know what, whatever. But no, the Mississippi 9 have stepped up and they've pointed the finger back at these corporations. They've pointed the finger right back at these practices that still exist in the Jim Crow South. And if you think that it doesn't happen, I invite you to come down here and talk to these 9 individuals. Talk to these 9 plaintiffs. It still happens. After this humiliating experience, plaintiffs and their union representatives filed a grievance. So they filed a grievance saying, look, what happened wasn't right. Obviously, we all know that it wasn't right. What happens? It causes tension. It causes tension between the workers and, of course, the employers, the bosses, everybody that was involved in this process. It's going to cause some type of feeling, some type of tension between the two parties. I can already imagine what these 9 individuals were feeling like. So what happens? They come back after the Mississippi 9 have filed the grievance. They come back and they say, you know what? We'll grab a couple white guys too and test them. You know, what the heck? They take 2 white employees and one of them tested positive for marijuana. Could you imagine that? Would have been great if they just tested everybody, but no. That's not how things work here, right? It's not how they worked. So we see that, you know, we have the grievances filed, and what does the company have to say about it? We agree that our procedures should be clear. Should be clear. They should be fair, and they should be focused on workplace safety. And that going forward, they will only conduct drug and alcohol testing for individuals whose observed behavior is deemed to be reasonably suspicious of impairment or policy violation. So they say, now we're going to do things right? When that was already the policy before, right? The policy was already reasonable suspicion. So I don't understand. You're saying, oh, it should be right. You know, it should be fair. It should be just. And we're going to change it, right? And then they say and reiterate the exact policy that you had before. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So let's see what happened. Let's see what happened here in 25. We can see clearly defendants use racial stereotypes and discriminatory animus in targeting the plaintiffs for drug testing. I mean, yeah. Come on. I mean, you can't be serious, right? Like it smells like marijuana in the warehouse. You know, warehouse is huge. You know who to go get. Go get the black guys. Let's round them up, take them off site, and test them. Are you serious? Are you serious? I don't understand how your mind can work like that. You know, even from a business standpoint, even from an operational standpoint, you know, even if you're a bad guy, or even if you're a bad manager, or you're racist, like, do you not understand that the law clearly is not in your favor? I mean, setting aside like being a good person and ethics and morality and all that stuff that seems to be absolutely non-existent here, don't you want to prevent lawsuits like this? I mean, you're looking at a huge lawsuit. The Mississippi 9 have stepped up and they're going to tear you down. You better hope and pray this doesn't get to a jury. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? A company, a corporation like this with this much money, most likely, I'm assuming, a company like this, are you serious? You're looking at you could be looking at 350 million if they decide that at 50 million a day, heck, it might be we might as well slap them on the wrist with a week worth of punishment. So, and once again, these numbers, I'm just throwing them out there. This is just an estimate. You know, maybe it's way less. Maybe I'm wrong. And I hope I am. I hope I am wrong, but you know, this is just my opinion. It's just hypothetical, we'll say. So let's look what happens after, right? And I'm going to try to kind of wrap this up. Here. I'm only halfway through. So I'm going to post a part 2 a little bit later, but I got to get this out to y'all tonight. So word travels like wildfire. If you live in a small town, you know how this works, man. You know how this works. Word is going to get out. So before plaintiffs could clock out on the day they were tested, word had traveled across the defendant's workforce. I mean, everybody knows what's going on. You march them in front of everybody. You send them away in black vans and threaten to fire them. I mean, everybody's hearing about this at any workplace. That's how this works. So obviously, yes, we can probably predict that every plaintiff suffered severe reputational harm as a result, of course. They were called dope heads. They were repeatedly asked by members of their community about their alleged drug use. Because keep in mind, the policy was it had to be reasonable suspicion. So they're thinking that these guys were walking around drunk at work, inebriated, they're stumbling. No, they clocked in 6 o'clock in the morning sharp. They were there ready to work. That's not at all how it went down. But this is what it seems like. This is what it seems like because of the actions of the defendants here. So let's keep going down. Let's keep going down. There's something here that needs to be brought up, right? So yes, we can see that because the reasonable suspicion was the standard, what's going to happen now? What's going to happen is it's going to go on their record, right? So anybody in the future is going to pull up their record and they're going to say, oh, you were subject to a reasonable suspicion drug test. Do you smoke? Do you smoke marijuana? Do you use drugs? That's something that's going to be in their file, presumably because they looked drunk at work, or they were acting or talking, inebriated, whatever it may have been, whatever someone can imagine. It opens that door. It opens that door for future employers to imagine these scenarios that just don't exist. This is going to harm all of the Mississippi 9's reputation. So I just want to point out. I mean, and I wish I had more time in this video. I'm gonna upload a part 2 with more of this. But I mean, just the strength when you talk about the management. I mean, when you talk about the management, I mean, when you look, let me search here. There's something that caught my eye in this. And it was about the management. So imagine a corporation, right, where the majority, I'm not going to say the majority because I don't know for sure if it's the majority, but got to be half, in my imagination, hypothetically it's half. You got to have management that reflects that, right? You can't have a huge work floor of 50 black guys, 50 white guys, 50 Hispanics, and then have all white management. I mean, there's just absolutely no way, right? It doesn't really make sense. So, especially if these guys, I want to point out, some of these plaintiffs have worked at the company for so long. We're talking about 30, 40 years. So you're telling me you're bringing in people to these management positions when you have people that have 30, 40 years worth of experience, and you're going to bring in somebody that's way younger, somebody that has no experience on the floor. You're not going to pull people up. So I just don't understand that. Yeah. So here, let's get into it here. So let's look at this. For several years, defendants have largely withheld the opportunity to ascend to supervisory, foreman, and inspector positions from their African American workers, despite having a majority minority workforce. So that is, the African American employees have toiled in hard labor for decades, acting as the backbone and longevity of these corporations, but have been denied the equal benefit of upward mobility. This is exactly what I was just getting at. So this is big. This is the one that that's going to paint a picture for the jury. It's going to paint a picture for the jury. Just listen to this. Just listen to this. Despite being well qualified, those people have been denied the equal benefit of upward mobility. Let's look at this here. Even today, of the countless supervisors and inspectors Taylor Machine employs, Taylor Machine has only one token African American supervisor and one token African American inspector. Much like the Mississippi slave fields in the 1800s, defendants have built their economic prowess and wealth through the hard labor of African American employees, but have denied them any equal enjoyment of the benefits white employees are afforded. This practice continues, but in modern form. I mean, come on, imagine sitting in a jury and hearing that. how are you looking at the defendant, man? And then you find out they told them, don't do this. Don't round up just the African Americans. Round everybody up. Let's all do a drug test. But no, you had to line up 9 African American individuals. You had to take the Mississippi 9, march them across all of their colleagues, just because their skin is a different color than everybody else's. Amazing. Amazing. I mean, I'm speechless. So these plaintiffs, the Mississippi 9, I mean, they are standing up. They are saying, you know, we're not going to let this happen anymore. It's happened for, 40 years. It's not going to happen anymore. We had separate bathrooms. Late as 1978. 10 plus years after the Civil Rights Act was passed by Lyndon B. Johnson in 1964. And then today, in 2026, you are going to march into a warehouse, say it smells like weed, and then walk all the way to the paint shop? The paint shop? That's another thing. Smelling weed coming from the paint shop? And then you round them up, only black guys, march them across, take them off site in a van, you test them, it goes in their record as reasonable suspicion. I mean, this is textbook. So I'm going to get a little bit deeper into this. We're going to hopefully go through it line by line in a future video. But I hope that you've learned something the last half hour about Mississippi. And maybe you already knew. Maybe this is just a reminder of what's happening in Mississippi. It leaves me speechless. And regardless, like I said, regardless of your political views, regardless of how you feel about the state or the governance of the state, or how you feel about large corporations in America, I think that we can all agree on one thing. Everybody has rights that have to be protected. And the Mississippi 9 have stood up. They have stood up to this corporation. And they're saying, no. You're not going to strip away, you're not going to be allowed to strip away the civil rights of a group of African American workers on a random day of the week at 6 a.m. just because you have some sort of prejudice. You just can't do it. And it's not going to be able to happen. It's not allowed to happen anymore.